thanking all of those who contributed to this very important debate this morning. I want to particularly thank the TDs who have indicated their support and who are, like ourselves, listening to the constituents who are telling us that they are enduring great hardship. These are ordinary families, businesses, farmers, hauliers. This crisis is affecting everybody in this state. And I just wonder, as each day and each week goes by, and I know in my own county there were several power cuts over the last number of weeks. 1 week in particular, there were 2 power cuts. And as we get, this is becoming more common, I do wonder, will we be dancing in the dark this Christmas? I just feel this government isn't doing enough. I feel that it's just not listening to people, that there's a big disconnect there, and that it doesn't have the empathy to reach out and listen to what people are hardship in this country. We're still in the midst of a pandemic, unfortunately. We have businesses struggling to keep their doors open. I'm being told by families that they're really struggling to put diesel or petrol in the car every week. And we know that heating bills and electricity bills have risen, but enormously. We have the highest electricity bills in the EU, and that our average electricity and heating bills are now between €500 and €800. That's what the increase amounts to. Now that is a colossal amount of money for any family and for any business struggling to keep its doors open. So despite the rhetoric about helping people, I don't feel that this is the case. I think more needs to be done here. There needs to be proper regulation. And I do want to correct a statement made by another deputy here from Solidarity People Before Profit this morning. They have the name and they try to be the true socialists. But the electricity hikes are affecting the most vulnerable in our society. And they made some sordid statements, incorrect statements this morning, that we supported data centres, and I want to correct that. That's incorrect. But at no point did Solidarity People Before Profit engage with us or put an amendment down to the motion. So they'd prefer to come in here and jump up and down about austerity and everything else, but they've nothing to add, nothing constructive to add at all. So they're some socialists, aren't they? So we all have to question that too. What I do want to say here is that people are really struggling. I've had meetings with farmers, hauliers, ordinary working people. They're getting it very, very hard. And I could honestly say that there's real hardship. And I am asking government to please take action. Please ensure that there's some action taken, because it doesn't make sense to me or anybody else why Ireland has the highest electricity costs in the EU. It doesn't make sense. I feel a lot more could be done and should be done. And I feel that there needs to be true leadership. I think the problem and indeed the mistake that government is making is that they're leaving people behind. I mean, we all want to do our bit for the environment. Nobody is denying anything. But what we are saying is that some of the solutions and the actions that are being taken are ludicrous. I saw in my own constituency a power station closed down at Shannon Bridge, another one in Lanesborough in County Longford. At a time when we needed those power stations, we're seeing inferior quality peat coming in from thousands of miles as far as Latvia, and that's increasing our carbon footprint. So this makes no sense. And what I am saying to government is that you're losing people. You're losing people that want to do the best by the environment. You're losing people that want justice, real justice for people. All of those people are being left behind, and they are being left disillusioned. And what I'm asking for is for you to listen to what the people in this country are telling us. And they're simply telling us that they cannot sustain the electricity or the energy prices. It's not sustainable. We're going to lose many businesses. There's hauliers that are really at the brink at this point, and farmers at the brink. And we need to do more. Ordinary families, as I said, that cannot afford these costs. So what I'm asking for is action. Because, look, energy security and energy price fairness are the issues of fundamental importance. And, well, almost everybody, because if we are to assess government's intent by their actions rather than by their rhetoric, then it would appear that energy blackouts and sky-high energy costs are a price they are willing to accept in pursuit of ridiculous policy objectives that bear no relation to reality, and two of those being the importation of peat and briquettes into the country. It does not make sense. It's increasing the carbon footprint. You're putting people out of jobs, and I feel that it's just not good enough. As the lights go out and as the businesses the length and breadth of the state receive more and more scheduled loss of power notifications from the ESB, this government and Minister Eamon Ryan continue to act like the knight from the famous Monty Python sketch. The knight's arms and legs are gone, but he insists on calling it a scratch. Nothing to worry about, he says, nothing to see here. It might be funny if the matter were not so serious and if so many people in our state were not suffering. Indeed, Minister Ryan is like the parent who, with all sincerity, would say to their child, "This is going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you." That's not the case. How or who does this government think they are kidding? The people who are going to suffer the most from this energy crisis are the same people who have always suffered, whether from government incompetence or from situations that requires decisive action in favour of citizens. And this government isn't taking decisive action. It will be the poorest who will suffer. It will be those who cannot pay the estimated €56,000 for retrofitting, despite all the bloated promises around grants and financial supports. And we've already heard here a number of times from TDs, and I'd say it myself, that the waiting lists for SEAI retrofitting grants are too long. They're too long, so we're not getting to grips with that. It will be those like the peat harvesters, who I fully support and represent, and I represent the turf cutters and the peat harvesters. This is an important part of Irish tradition that we're sacrificing up. Without any regard or value put on these traditions. It'll be those harvesters that will continue to see their traditional lifestyles and indeed their livelihoods completely decimated. And I want to again call out the importation of briquettes and peat, and I think Minister Ryan needs to come in here and explain why we have such a scenario and something that's increasing the carbon footprint. And I'm calling on him to come in here and explain. Because it's all well and good swanning off to Glasgow or wherever he is today. But the carbon footprint is increased if we're importing peat. And I'm calling on the Minister, come in here and explain himself. Because it makes no sense. No sense whatsoever. Minister Eamon Ryan has promised us in a press statement in September, and I quote, "In order to accommodate those with rights to harvest sod peat, no ban on its burning will be introduced." Yet, here we are now, a little less than 2 months later, and we have a climate action plan that specifically targets the banning of coal and peat for residential use by 2030. We literally cannot believe a word this government is saying because it's full of contradictions. When it comes to protecting people's capacity to heat their own homes in the way they see fit and in the way they're entitled to do, as the generations before them have done. This is exactly what I have called the creeping criminalisation of people that want to burn turf, or the turf cutters. It's creeping criminalisation that I have been warning about for some time. The plain reality is this: the Climate Council and this government is helicopter dumping ideological nonsense all across rural Ireland, with the full blessing of a complicit and grossly out-of-touch government that does not have the first clue about how hard life is becoming. And I do want to point out that when it came to the Climate Action Bill and the vote on the Climate Action Bill, there was only 10 independent TDs voted against that bill. That bill condoned the carbon tax, and it also condoned the Climate Advisory Council, which devised carbon budgets and which punished and are punishing our farmers today. So let's not fool the people. Let's make it very clear that there were only 10 independents opposing the Climate Action Bill, myself included in that. It will not be the members of the Climate Action Advisory Council who are essentially acting as Minister Ryan's personal cabinet that will suffer. It will be the people in this state, and it is the people in this state, who are unnecessarily suffering because of the short-sighted and stupid policies. And that's what they are. Make no sense whatsoever, some of them. In fact, some of us are increasingly start to wonder who is the real Taoiseach in this government. Taoiseach Martin spoke last week about how he took it as great compliment when somebody said he sounded like a member of the Green Party. That must have gone down very well with those in Fianna Fáil, who lament the total and absolute collapse in the party's political identity. It ought to be as plain as the nose is on our faces that the energy situation as it currently stands risks bringing about not only significant national damage but also significant international damage to this country. And I believe this is a time where we need real statespeople to step up and show leadership and defend the people in this country. Ordinary families and working people, our farmers and our hauliers are being punished, and it has to stop. Thank you very